Hi everyone and welcome to Thisisfootball.Africa, and it's saying it like it is. It's Rob Moore and myself, Peter du Toit. Glad to be back. Thanks for the great response to the Kaizer Chiefs piece we did. And this week we're looking at Orlando Pirates' chances of toppling Sundowns in the Premier League this season. And before we start, guys, don't forget please to like and subscribe and your comments. I got back to all the comments I could. Really appreciated some great comments. And great bit of advice from you guys out there. So please keep it coming. Rob, Orlando Pirates. Before we talk about the team's chances this season,
I just want to know my home strip of black. You happy with that?
Mind you, I'm wearing
the discussion.
Guys, that's a good point. This black I'm wearing and Rob's black, I didn't even notice. So maybe it's not a sign of our who we support, but well spotted, Robin. I'm glad you did, because I'm sure the
match preparation.
Yeah, I put my hand up. Well done. Either way, Rob, you've dealt with Pirates. I've dealt with Pirates I played against Pirates many times. I'm sorry, Pirates fans. I always scored goals against the team, but that's a separate story. But Rob, you've dealt with Pirates from a player point of view. Your dealings with Ivan and Pirates.
Ivan and I go back a long way. We got quite a history.
You were rivals, basically, first of all.
Yeah, there's a little bit of love-hate, but I think there's a mutual respect. I think when I hear players tell me, Pirates is interesting, Pirates is interested in me, I heard this, I heard that, I always ask one question: has Ivan called you? Because when that happens, then the interest is serious. I mean, I'll give you an example with Ronwen Williams. Ivan was, he really was keen to sign Ronwen. And he got in the car himself to go drive to meet Ronwen and to lay it out and to say what he had in mind, for Ronwen to come to Pirates. I was really impressed by that. I thought that was unbelievable. He's a guy that also, interestingly, respects tradition as well. With Benny and certain little things, jersey number, respect in the team. He spoke to Ronwen and said, Ronwen, at the end of the day, you're captain of the national team. If you join my club, I need to look at that. I need to respect the fact that you're captain of the national team. And that's something that I've got to look at with regards to your role in my club, where, and that's, which lets, that gives you an idea that he's a guy also looks at bigger things and other things, and the bottom line with him is he doesn't mess around. If he wants something, he will negotiate very quickly and get to a bottom line very quickly. And that's, you can't, in that regard, he's much quicker than Sundowns and let's say Chiefs. When he wants something, he goes for it and he makes it happen. So I've got a lot of respect for him in that regard.
He's decisive.
Exactly. And I've got a lot of respect for him in that regard. And to be fair, one of the questions Ronwen had was, and we're talking, 18 months ago or 15 months ago, was, at that stage, Pirates had just come off a poor season. And it was like, well, where is this ship actually heading to at this point in time? So that was a little bit a question mark in Ronwen's mind and in my mind. And all he would say is, "Don't worry, we mean business this year." And he had a good season last year. And I texted him and Nkosana and Mpumi, and straight away after they won the cup and everything, and I said, "Guys, well done. You've had a great season. Well done." All three came back to me. "Thanks very much. Appreciate it." Blah blah. So I think. So answer your question. I think he's a guy who, when he senses things need to be corrected or recalibrated, should I say, he rolls up his sleeves himself and he's at the coalface, and I like that. I think that's a very good trait that Ivan has.
And Rob, I mean, you're speaking probably now more as Rob Moore, the agent. When you were Rob Moore, the football club owner at Ajax Cape Town in particular, and obviously Seven Stars, how was, Ivan was the chairman, or still is the chairman of the league. He was running the show as a, you were working with him in one way as a fellow club owner, but in another aspect, you were opponents because you were rival club owners. And Ajax at that time, were challenging for the league title, so therefore big rivals to Chiefs and Pirates and Sundowns at that particular time. How did you find him on the board?
Yeah, interesting guy. I think that what was quite interesting, he was very anti the Ajax partnership. Well, that certainly was the impression I got. That he was quite anti the Ajax partnership, and he gave us quite a runaround in terms of trying to set that whole deal up, and with the partnership of Amsterdam, and it was almost, we got the impression that he really didn't want it to happen, and we was frustrated because we thought that he wasn't seeing the bigger picture, that here was an opportunity for a South African club to partner with a very big global power and learn best practices that we could bring back to South Africa, and through our club try and move things forward onto another level, and so it was very difficult. We had quite a run in at one stage where he wanted to take us to court and blah blah blah, and but anyway, long story short, the deal got through. And once it got through, he was a competitive fellow club owner, and that's the way life should be. Correct. You should be able to sit around a table, have healthy debates for the collective good of the teams in the league, but while maintaining your own individual competitiveness, Right. And I think that was good. I think where maybe the question marks sometimes come with Ivan, and particularly historically, he wore a lot of caps at one time, and when you wear a lot of caps, or hats, should I say, when you wear a lot of hats, you open yourself up to questions, but is this really in the good? What is actually happening behind the scenes? What is this? What is that? But that's a lot of conspiracy theory stuff, and I'm not one who likes too much conspiracy theory. I like to just look at things as they are, play the ball, not the man, and just get on with it, but I think he's also mellowed a little bit, as he's got older, because, he was a very important part of bringing a World Cup to South Africa. You don't get sort of much bigger than that when you are an administrator in football, that you can successfully bring a World Cup to your own country. So, that's something that you really respect. And I've got a lot of respect for him. He can be difficult sometimes to deal with, but we all can be. As long as at the end of the day, the deal gets over the line, if that's what the parties all ultimately want,
Great. Look, it's very simple in my eyes, Rob, and I've known, obviously, Ivan for a long time through Soccer Laduma. I didn't know him during my playing days. Obviously, I played against the players and I knew the coaches. Didn't really get to know chairmen and that. But through my 25 years, when I started Soccer Laduma till when I sold my shares, one thing you have to say is Ivan stood the test of time.
Yeah.
There's no discussion. He's led South African football for the last, as far as I can remember, and has stood the test of time. To a certain extent, I wonder if the league would be anywhere near what it is if it wasn't for him, because he's a leader and he's led it. And Orlando Pirates definitely would not be where it is if it wasn't for him. And I can just say from all my dealings with all the PSL clubs, Pirates, despite how big they were and how influential they are, I can have no complaints ever at Soccer Laduma of not being treated fairly by Orlando Pirates. They were, and I can tell you, I think they're in very good hands with his two sons.
I would agree with that. I was going to just say that I like Mpumi, I like NK. They're bright young men. They're an interesting next generation, and and I think they're progressive, in their own ways with what they want to do. I mean, they're dealing with a very traditional club, so bringing in.
All football clubs should be traditional.
Yeah, exactly, which I love. I love that, Yeah.
Anyway, we can move on. Obviously, there's also Skuma Chabalala and Floyd Mbele in the background. I've dealt a lot with, I've known Skuma since the days he was Sundowns coach, and he's a character. He's been to my house. We've had dinner together, been out with him many times. I know he's almost, they're both in the latter stage of their careers. I'm not sure the influence they have at the club anymore, but I've always had high regard for Skuma. He should have a book, and Floyd obviously knows the game inside out as well. But in the two sons, in I deal with in particular top class, and I think the Pirates fans, you're in good hands there. But let's look at it. With all that, and having said all that, can Orlando Pirates topple, and that's the question Orlando Pirates fans are asking and hoping for. Can they topple Mamelodi Sundowns? Can they go one better than last season, where they finished second and had a great second half of the season? Can they top Mamelodi Sundowns? That's not an easy task.
Well, Peter, I did a little bit of research on it, and and I like to take like a 5-year snapshot, and if I look back at it, and they. In 4 of the 5 years, they were a top 3 team. I think the only one was not last season, the season before. The wheels came off a little bit. They ended up 6th. So that's good. Good consistency. Worrying factor for me is 5 years ago they came second, like last season, came second on 57 points compared to 54 last season. But they were only 2 points behind Sundowns 5 years ago when they came second. Last season, second again, but they were 16 points behind Sundowns. So that's quite a gap that's opened up, should we say? And
so what you say, Pirates have maintained their level to a certain extent, but Sundowns have just got better.
Yes, they've pulled ahead. So in 3 of the last 4 seasons. Pirates have consistently achieved between 50 and 54 points, okay? But in that period, Sundowns has gone on to achieve between 65 and 70 points. So meaning that Sundowns has become a machine. And any club wanting to dethrone them need to be very, very consistent. And if you look at versus the 4 clubs around them, so who am I talking about? Sundowns, SuperSport, City, and Chiefs. Yeah. They only got 7 points from a possible 24, and in those 4, against those same 4 clubs away from home, only 1 point out of 12. So there immediately is a need to raise the game against the big boys that are around you. You need more than 7 points out of 24. So you need to be at 15, 16 points.
So if I can stop you there, Rob. Pirates fans, it's quite simple. The first task is Pirates have got to start beating the teams around them, the Chiefs, the Sundowns, the SuperSports and the Cape Town Cities of this world away from home, or at least get points. If they get that right, they can narrow that gap.
Against Sundowns and Chiefs, for example, they got 0 points out of 6 against both those teams. So that was these are quite important things. You then put a couple of smaller things together, but which to their credit, I think in the second half of the season they put right. Home loss to Chipper should never happen. Away loss to Maritzburg, they got relegated. 1 point out of 6 against Sekhukhune. Not to disrespect Sekhukhune, but Sekhukhune they should be 4 out of 6. At least. And but then if you look at like since the calendar year really, since it started 23 until the stage that basically the season was wrapped up, which was in April really mathematically, the only teams that they lost to they lost to were those around them. Sundowns twice, Chiefs City once, and Chiefs once. And 3 of those 4 games were away from home. So the moral of what I'm saying is from the turn of the year to when the league was wrapped up, they had built up a consistency. And they built up a...
So if you, taking that point further, Rob, if you look at the first half of the season, if you just look at the actual games, first 15 games of the season, at the end of the first 15 games, Morocco Swallows were top of the log, Pirates were 7th.
Yeah.
So a poor start to the season. And I think that's probably a little bit more important than the second half of the season. And the reason why I say that, because if you look at the second half of the season, Pirates actually got more points than Sundowns. If you just take second half of the season, but Sundowns already won the league. And,
a lot of Sundowns' drop points were once the league was wrapped up.
So I don't think that's a proper. But first half of the season, and I also think probably they can eradicate that bad first half of the season next season, because it was Riveiro's first season at the club, and there was a period of change and so on and so forth. And they haven't revamped the entire side. They've really got rid of a few players, and they've added some exceptional players, which you can talk about a little bit later. So all in all, the biggest factor, though, is what you just mentioned right now, is that they've got to start beating the Cape Town cities, the SuperSports, the Chiefs, and the Sundowns. Even if it's not the Sundowns, they've got to be beating the rest.
Yeah, and they've got to get maximum points against strugglers. I think that the two promoted sides are the most likely going to struggle. I don't see many signings there that are making me think that, that this could be, that they're going to surprise, put it that way. And Chipper and Richards Bay, those are going to be the teams they're probably going to battle a little bit this season. They got to look at getting, against those 4 clubs. I would say at least 3 of them, they got to get 6 out of 6. And the 4th one, they got to get 4 out of 6.
Rob, I watched a lot of, I obviously watched most of the games. The one clear thing about Pirates is they miss too many chances.
Yeah.
Whereas they need somebody to score 15, 20 goals a season. But we can come back to that a little later.
Yeah.
A couple of things that we've got to ask ourselves is, why are Sundowns so much better than Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs? And in particular, Pirates, because they're their closest rivals if you look at last season. And I think, and when we look at the squad, this is the point we're going to look at. If you look at Sundowns are talking about winning in Africa. They're saying we've got to become the best team in Africa. And with that attitude, the byproduct of that is you're also wanting to be the best team in South Africa. And, if you look at big teams in Africa right now, you're talking about Al Ahly, Zamalek, Raja Casablanca, Wydad Casablanca, but you're also talking about Sundowns. They're in the top 5. You're not talking people. If you speak to people in Africa, like I do, various journalists and club owners and so on and so forth, they don't say players that are in Africa. And I think that's the biggest difference. If you look at Sundowns are signed players that make a difference in Africa. And I look at the Pirates players, and I think they're signing players who can help them win the league. But while Sundowns keep signing players that are going to make them better for Africa, the other clubs are going to always be behind them. But having said that, I think Pirates have got an exciting squad this season. I think they've improved the squad. They've let go a couple of players who flattered to deceive. I thought Goodman Maselele would become a very good player. He hasn't. Craig Martin, I thought would do well. He's gone. I'm not sure whether they signed Mabena, but he's gone. So, but let's look at the new signings. If you look at their goalkeeping department, they've signed this.
Peter, one point on what you're saying, I think it's very important, is I think Pirates need to look at beyond South Africa for some key signings. Because I think South African players are too expensive. Sundowns are paying, if you're not bought for 10 million nowadays, well, then people are saying, well, what's wrong with the guy? It's that sort of raise the bar by that amount, And I think those kinds of sums of money on 3 or 4 players is probably beyond Pirates, or probably beyond their appetite to want to spend that amount on transfer fees. Okay. And I think and you look at now these players that Sundowns have signed, like, or this latest one coming from the 2nd division of Belgium, and making, apparently from media reports, a pretty decent first impression on their preseason training camp. I mean, we're talking 2nd division Belgium. those kind of guys, there's players in South Africa earning much better salaries than those guys. And those kinds of guys are available for much cheaper than paying the overinflated prices for the South African players.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, I think and I don't know, maybe Pirates have got this, but I've never come across this. I know Sundowns have got a terror who goes and scouts all over South America and all that type of thing. Maybe Pirates need to look at that. They need to say, maybe it's time to appoint a global scout whose job is to seek out these free players for us, where we can get a free player but give him really good wages, so that the total cost to company is far less than what it would be to go and buy a player for 10, 12 million like Sundowns does and pay them 4, 5, 6 million in salary a year,
Instead of going to buy South African players.
Instead of looking, I'm saying in the case of Pirates, they need 3 key signings like that. They need to maybe go to Europe or to South America or a combination of both and go and find 3, maybe 4 signings like that where the total package makes economic sense. And they can add a lot of value because these guys their footballing education has been in a very good environment,
Look, I agree with that. I think, in fact, we mentioned that in the Chiefs discussion. We said that Chiefs should be looking at getting, a bit of players from South America like Sundowns have done it to bring something different to their team. The Pirates' argument could be, though, is that if you look at the number of players that Sundowns have brought from South America, and there's been a large amount of players, how many have really made it? So, but that's a separate issue. Without a doubt, the football education in South America is higher than the current football education that we have in South Africa. And
Europe, though, go to the Belgiums, the Hollands, the leagues at Portugal, the leagues that can't afford to pay good money. I mean, Premier League clubs in Portugal, there's probably 30 to 40% of them that the likes of Pirates could, if they were getting them on a free transfer, could offer them far better salaries than what they would get in Portugal.
So, Rob, tell us, what is you don't have to mention names, but let's give us numbers. What is a really good player at Pirates Chiefs earning? What do they earn in South Africa? And then what are the guys earning in those 40, 60% that you talk about in Portugal, for example, earning?
Well, you probably, you're looking, okay.
I'm talking signing on fee and salary.
Yeah, total, for the season. Okay, the top players are probably in the region of 4 to 6 million rand a year.
So there are the top players in South Africa.
There's players who may earn more than 6.
So there are, on average, the top players in South Africa are earning between 4 and 6 million a year.
The top players are.
Are we talking the top 30, top 100, top?
No, I would say probably the top 15 players, I would say. Maximum 20, but more likely 15 would earn north of 4 million rand a year.
Including Sundowns players in this.
Yeah.
They're probably the bulk of them. So,
but I'm saying, so 4 million rand a year is 200,000 euros. Okay?
Right.
200,000 euros, if you're getting a guy on a free transfer, I mean, and then, okay, in the case of Sundowns, you can be earning that kind of salary, plus you've just been bought for 10, 12, 14 million rand. Okay, right. So if you're talking 200 to 250,000 euros gross, okay, and the tax rate in South Africa is better than, for example, Holland, okay, and Belgium for that matter, for a Belgian player, you could be pretty competitive with what level of player you could get. Obviously, other dynamics come in. For example, do they want to move to South Africa? How do they view the league? How this, how that? But okay. Those are all I'm saying is financially, if Pirates wanted to adopt a strategy like that, because I think Pirates, when push comes to shove, will probably spend more on transfer fees than Chiefs, for example. That's just my opinion. Okay.
Yeah,
so, and that all boils down to Ivan's appetite for wanting to do well in a season. If he wants to do well, he'll get the checkbook out. Okay. So I'm saying that Pirates could probably go and buy themselves 3 or 4 key players, key positions that certainly would be of a high level for PSL level, and they would probably come in within their budget in the bigger scheme of things. And if they got them from Europe,
Well, I'm sure they'll listen. I'm sure they'll hear this. But they've got to get an overseas scout. Okay, let's look at the squad though. The goalkeeper department. They've always.
We have a good agent, Peter. I have access to a good agent. Hey, what do you think? Who understands the PSL market and who understands?
If I think of somebody, I'll let him know. Yeah. Well, listen, you got him, Benny, and Benny made a huge difference.
Yeah. Benny was a critical moment in that particular era, and
I think it was great for Benny.
Yeah, it was great for Benny. I think and Ivan was brilliant there. He went straight for it, no messing around. I think, you know what happened? He came back from overseas, and I think Ajax wanted Benny to train there.
He was training there.
Well, but they wanted him to virtually have a trial. I'm not
going to tell you who tipped Pirates off that Benny was training at Ajax, but that's another story.
Yeah, well, I'm really scratching my head on that one.
Yeah.
But I can imagine. But Peter, look at the result, treble.
Yeah, fantastic.
Treble, eh?
And he was good influence.
Yeah.
So let's just look at the goalkeeping department. I think Pirates have done really well. They've stayed. I mean, Sipa Chain is a good keeper, good with his feet. That's brought a different dimension to their game. Ofori is a good keeper, injury prone. But I like the youngster they've signed. Where he's 25, Butalezi. Their goalkeeping department's fine. They've got 4 good keepers there. They're not world beaters, but they're good, solid keepers, and they'll give a lot of competition. Their defense, I really like Sabisi. I like Manyani wide, Mako and Maseko. Mako and Maela, very good players. Not sure about the Nigerian. I thought at one stage they're going to let him go, Nadal. But I think they need a commanding ball-playing centre-back to play alongside Sabisi, because he's top class. And if they can get another ball-playing centre-back, and that may talk to your point that, like Nascimento, when he signed for Sundowns, I think he made a big difference. A left-footed player, could play from the back, experienced, the Brazilian. I think if Sundowns could get somebody like him from Europe, now that we're talking about all South America, to bring a different dimension to our game and a bit more aggression.
Yeah, I mean, you look, Peter, at Ali Skit when Ali went to Sundowns, and Ali is now today a scout at a club in Europe, and he talks very fondly about his time that he had at Sundowns.
Maybe you should talk to him.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And so I agree with you. I think at a club like Pirates, the way their DNA of how they play football, they need defenders who are quick, because nowadays defenders need to be quick, but more important and commanding, but come out with the ball with the ball at their feet, be able to break a line with the ball at your feet, and be able to make a sensible pass. And then that's critical. You don't need a hoofball, a brawn, a big donkey type centre half. Yeah. You need intelligence.
And I think somebody like that alongside Sibisu, I think is super. And their defence is, I think, decent. They've got good ball playing players. They go forward quickly. I think they just need another head there who's been around the block and will be able to play from the back in particular, but experienced. That when they push forward, he knows when to call people back and organise. Because the one problem with the goalkeepers, I'm not sure if they're that good at organising. They're not as dominant verbally from what I can see. Obviously not in the field with them. It's the middle of the park that I'm really impressed with. If you look at Pirates, though, one problem, too many players probably around 30 years of age. Moringa, Monare, Mochwari, Tim, who had a fantastic season. I think he's been a brilliant signing. I hope he's still got the legs in him. And they've also got the ex-Amazulu captain, Makuula, if I've got his name pronounced correctly. So in the central areas, I think they're fine, sort of to hold in front of the back four and to go forward. But I'm really excited about their signing of Kapinga. When he was at Leopards, I thought he was sensational, and I was really excited when he signed for Sundowns. Your question mark could be, well, he didn't break into the Sundowns team. How's he going to make, is he going to be that much of a difference at Pirates when they didn't keep him and let him go? But I think he's got that little X factor. He carries the ball well. He's tough for a small guy. I think he could be a sensation at Pirates, and I really hope he settles in quickly. I hope he's fit enough. But I think he could be that little X factor. They've obviously got Lodlow there as well. And if you look at on the wide, that's where they've got a lot of strength with Saling. The big thing with Saling is, can he do it for another season? I mean,
Peter, at the end of the day, when you've made your breakthrough, like he has last season in terms of his status, should we say, or the status is another notch that he's moved up. You got to be on top of your game, because now defenders and clubs are identifying you as a danger. They are probably paying more attention on how to defend against you than maybe they would have last season. And so now he's got to, this will be an interesting test for him. Can he continually outsmart defenders like and keep progressing? Because that's what it's all about, right? Keep progressing. And so that will be the key for him.
He's a match winner. He's got that X factor. He scores goals, makes goals. He works hard. But as you say, second season is always harder than the first season. So I really hope he progresses, as you say.
Yeah.
He's a match winner. Incidentally, I think they're also a bit short. Manyane needs somebody to challenge him. They've got Shandu, was at Maritzburg, a good player. Mission Ertigal rated him very highly when he was there. But I think they could do with possibly another right-sided player. And that's what I thought Craig Martin. I'm surprised they let him go on that basis. But anyway, and you also got Vincent Pule, who can play wide, but he's also 30. He can play wide left to right. He injured last season, but I think he'll push Saling. And I think that's one of the things that if Saling's struggling a bit, you can bring on Pule. So I think their right-hand side is sorted. On the left-hand side, they've obviously got Hotto, solid player, but also 30. They've got... Kadleka, who was at Sundowns. I was a little surprised they signed him. He's 27. He'd been I think he was at, not Galance, he was at Galaxy or Galance, I just forget now. I'm surprised. I thought he missed his chance, but he's got a chance to resurrect his career. Or Latiza, as his surname.
Peter, I'm a bit surprised they let Terence go. He scored a few very important goals last year. And there's an over-reliance on Saling. If you look at where the goals came from, I think a couple of strikers even would probably be necessary. I mean, given all things given, what system would you play if you were Pirates' coach? Would you be playing 4-2-3-1? So you got the experienced older heads sitting in front of the back four, and you play with 3 and then just one number 9, because maybe you don't have the right 2 number 9s to play a 4-4-2 or whatever. Or would you play 4-4-2, or would you play 3-4-3 and have your attackers playing more narrow? So you're playing more of a triangle as opposed to wing 9.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
What do you do? 3-4-1-2. Is that enough? 3-4-1-2. Is that too many players?
Yeah, 3-4-1-2. You'll be allowed to take the field with 3.
Maths is not that good. But
you're saying 3 defenders. You have your 2 sitters. You have 2 wing backs. And then you play basically quite narrow. You play with a upside down triangle. You play with a 10 and 2 9s.
I'm playing that because of the players they got.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think you've got to play Lorch behind one of the strikers. And you've got to have Kapinga in there as well as one of the 4 midfielders. Neither of them are great at defending. And you don't want them defending anyway.
Yeah.
There's a problem there because Dlamini and guys like Dlamini and Erasmus would probably be on the bench there. It would put a lot of pressure on people like Lepesa or Evidence Magopa, who I think is a very good player, and I like Lepesa as well, because they've got to score goals. Because The
Yeah.
front man there's got to score goals. He's got to understand runs and so on and so forth. And if he couldn't, then they need to get somebody. But they've got this guy, Samuel Maru, who was in the Cameroonian squad at the World Cup. I really haven't seen enough of him. But you don't get into a World Cup squad unless you've got some ability. So I'm interested to see what he does. But the key men, they've got to keep Lorch fit. And he's got a court case coming up. I hope. Well, I don't want to comment on the court case. But assuming, that court case aside, if they keep him and Salenga fit, Lorch is also 30, and there were problems last season. They say it was fitness problems, injury problems. But if Lorch stays fit and performs, and he can play that role just behind the striker and drift, because he's got a big engine, he's got a lot of ability. If they discipline him to play that role properly, and Salenga wide on the right, and Hotto on the left, and then Tim and a host of others alongside him, with Kapinga almost like a free roll, I think it's going to be very difficult for teams to stop them when they're playing, because Salenga and Kapinga and Lorch in particular can cause a lot of havoc. And I think going forward, Pirates are going to have a very, very good side. The trouble is, I think can see them creating a lot of chances. I don't know if their front men on previous records haven't shown that they can score them. So again, like we said about the centre back, I would really go and find, and not in Africa, they've got enough players from Africa in that squad right now who are supposedly proven goal scorers and haven't really done that well. I think they need somebody. They've got to go that Sundowns route to get somebody from Europe or South America who knows, who's experienced, who's got a track record over the last 8, 9, 10 seasons of scoring 15 plus goals a season. And if you can hit a ball, we're not that good at crossing in this country, but if you can hit a ball as well, because Pirates pump a lot of balls into the box with their wide men, if you can get to the end of crosses, near post, far post, because when I watch Pirates, I say Sundowns, when I watch Pirates, so many good balls come into the box, but there's not that hunger, that typical hunger of a typical striker saying, I will be on the end of this. And Mark Williams kind of player who you knew he was going to be on the end of this. Even though Mark wasn't the best header of the ball, you knew he'd be in there, and he'd get a little touch with his head, maybe. Because that's all you need with a good cross coming into the box. You just have a little touch, because it deflects the ball in a different way and somebody else can come in. And look at what the difference to Sundowns. So all in all, if you look at the squad and the whole club, Ivan at the helm has put his money where his mouth is. He's got a whole lot of players. The club's well run. They've got a big squad, so they can compete on all levels. They've got cover in most areas. I think at right back, they probably needed one more cover. They need a centre back and a striker. They need to start well. They've got experienced players. They've got big guys in areas that count, except probably at centre back. I think they need someone else there. But the big thing is, can they score goals? Can they score goals? And if you can't score goals, and I don't see, Evans was injured for a long time. Lepesa, even at Bafana, he missed a few chances. You can't count Lorch. Kermit has seen better days. Domini's not a natural goal scorer. The foreigners that have come in, Pepra and others haven't delivered. They've got to get somebody who can write down 15 to 20 goals. The question would be, why would he be coming to South Africa if he's still doing that overseas? But, maybe break the bank for that one, because Pirates have got to start thinking, we're going to challenge the biggest clubs in Africa. We want to become an African giant once again, because they were the first.
Yeah, exactly. They were the trailblazers. And I would say, Peter, based on everything, I'd expect them to come second again, but close the gap on Sundowns, the points gap. I don't think, I think they've got to get it down from 16 points down to 5 or 6. That for me would be significant progress if they could do that. And then,
Yeah, I was going to say, you've been a club owner. The one question mark I have, I'm impressed with Riveiro's second half of the season. I mean, first off, you can't count, he was new to the game.
Yeah.
If you look at his track record, he wasn't a player, and he's been an assistant, hence his nickname head waiter, I think it was, when he first came. But he's been an assistant for most of his time. 2 good seasons in Finland with the club. He took them second. He hasn't run a league title. And I'm not being critical, because I felt he improved Pirates, and he obviously deserves a second season. There's no discussion about that. I hope he steps up because it's not only about the players. I want to see him as being responsible fully for that team, that the team believes in what he's playing. It's too often when I listen to South African coaches, when I say, sorry, not South African coaches, PSL coaches, talk about their teams after a game, they distance themselves from that team and they kind of blame the players and they blame the team. And in some instances, they're obviously correct. But if you look at coaches overseas, the top coaches, it's very seldom they blame the players and they blame the team. They're in the team, they are part of that team. And I'd like to see him kind of develop into that coach who when you're interviewing him, when he's been interviewed at the end of the game, he talks about he's responsible towards that and the we as opposed to they and so on. And I think it'll be good. I think so. I just hope he is part of that step up that Pirates will need to make, because they've got to step up, otherwise they'll come second again. And second is nowhere.
I wouldn't say second is nowhere. If like I say, if they can close the gap to around 5 or 6 points, for me that would be a gain progress. Because I mean, it's Rome wasn't built in a day, and we're talking about this guy, the coach, having come in on the back of a 6th place finish. You understand?
Right.
So I would then say that they're closing that gap to 5-6 points. Another trophy, another knockout trophy, would again represent a case for giving him a 3rd season. But then obviously the 3rd season is you're going to really need to be a big threat to Sundowns. And I mean, whittling away 16 points, Peter, as we said, it's a case of getting more than 7 points from the clubs around you, and it's a case of just again keeping that consistency that you showed in the second half of the season. And as you said, it's going to be critical that you get off to that start, because a start, if you get momentum going early, then that can then carry you through to really be a contender.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. The only thing I'm saying is that for Pirates to genuinely challenge Sundowns, and that's what the fans want, and that's what's going to be good for South African football. Pirates have got to see themselves as becoming an African giant once again, and that's got to show. I mean, the club's well organized, the kit looks great, everything is fantastic. I love the fact that they play it consistently at one stadium. They don't go and play games all over the place. They understand the tradition of the Orlando Stadium. I think that they've just got to sign some high-level players to take them to that next level mentally as well. And it's a mental thing. Winning is a mental thing. You can get 2 equally good players, the guy with a winning mental attitude and the never say die. And I think there's a little bit of that lacking in Pirates, because they drop points to the weaker teams, and they haven't beaten the bigger teams, or at least ground out a 1-1 or a 0-0. Although I saw a lot more of that come in the second half of the season, so I'm not being critical. I think it's going to be an interesting season. I think Pirates have definitely made some good signings. I don't think it's over. I think Ivan will still sign 1 or 2 more players that are going to make a big difference to that side. And I can't wait for the season to start.
Yeah. Peter, South African soccer needs strong big clubs like Pirates, Chiefs, Sundowns, and they need the romance stories like City, like SuperSport, those type of things. They need those. I'm a Zulu a couple of years ago. So good. I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. And Rob, we'll talk again next time. It's Mamelodi Sundowns. It's going to be an interesting chat. Because can they become the greatest team this country's ever seen? We'll tell you next week. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and send us your comments, and we'll chat to you next week. Cheers all.